Welcome back to Next Gen Investing. I'm Mouse Coffee. It's now time to welcome in our next guest, and that's Stephen Kent, the Media Director for Consumer Choice Center. Looking ahead to streaming, and I glanced through your notes. There's some exciting things on the horizon, it sounds like, in 2026. Why don't you walk us through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first thing is that this whole deal of a sale of Warner Brothers is hugely indicative to me of just the end of traditional media as we see it. Now, I know this gets said every year. The next year is going to be the total demise of traditional television and, pay cable-based packages. But this is really starting to accelerate in a way that I think people don't understand, that YouTube has become television. And the reason that I point that out is because traditionalists, year over year, have always maintained that the competition is between the traditional television packages and then their streaming competitors. So like your Netflix, your Disney, your Paramount Plus, but are completely neglecting the fact that most consumers are in fact sitting around in their living rooms and putting on their favorite YouTube television channels. It shakes up the entire dynamic of how people view stuff. And Warner Brothers is buried under millions and millions of dollars of debt, looking for a way out. Netflix is currently completely stagnant as a company in terms of its content on offer, traffic coming in, and there's got to be a major shakeup on the television side between the streaming side of things and then the traditional TV side of things. They're going to become one at some point, and it's going to be in 2026, I believe, because they have to actually unite at some point against YouTube as the actual real driver of most people's entertainment time in front of a screen.
And for those who aren't fully following what you're saying, Stephen, we're talking YouTube, the traditional creator-based platform. We're not talking YouTube TV, the streaming cable platform, which of course is popular and has its ties to the NFL, which we know is king. But I love your point about, things like Mr. Beast or how to, redecorate or, whatever it may be. I think of things like in the golfing niche, the disruption that's happening there. And you have real tour pros going to content creating platforms like YouTube and creating content. You could talk sports commentators who are skipping going to ESPN or Fox Sports, and they're just going straight to their fans directly through YouTube. Where does it go from here if you're a company like, Paramount or Comcast? There's a lot of risks out there, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, by the summer of 2026, you are now going to be in a world in which over 50%, finally, and it's taken a long time to actually get past 50, 51% of all entertainment streaming activity is going to be happening in YouTube, surpassing all the broadcast networks. And you're also going to have fast TV overcoming Netflix. This is going to be one of the big shakeups. So fast TV is free ad-supported streaming television. So two examples of that would be Pluto and Tubi. Now, if you look at viewer stats from the past 12 months. And this was the first year in which Nielsen was able to measure and was doing measurements of Pluto and Tubi and these other fast TV networks. In September, November 2024, fast TV was about 6% of the market to Netflix's 7.7. And then if you fast forward to this past year, 2025, the fall, that was completely switched. Fast TV is now over Netflix. Netflix is under. People are just going to go for these free ad-supported networks because, one, they feel a little bit more like traditional television, which people do generally actually miss over streaming. And then Netflix, again, is starting to fade. Its star is fading. And people are going to be looking for cheaper alternatives in the market, and consumers just generally want something that Netflix currently doesn't have. So I know people think about Netflix right now as a total powerhouse, but Netflix is doing this purchase of Warner Brothers out of a position of weakness, not strength. I know that they seem like this 100,000-pound gorilla in the room, but they're not. And things could actually shape up really differently by the end of the year if this doesn't go through for them.
Stephen, are we heading towards, in your mind, a world where the Disneys, the Paramounts, the Comcast, these major, whether it's studios or just general content makers, look more like Apple, Amazon, Alphabet? Of course, Netflix will probably still be in that mix in the next decade.
I'm not so sure about that. I think it's interesting that the tech companies, so like you said, Apple, Google, Amazon, that they've sort of created these studio environments for content creation. They're now making a lot of the content and bankrolling it, and then that content goes out to these streaming platforms. But I just think that there's still so much room in the market for consolidation, and it's kind of hard to imagine what that might even look like in the future. But consumers talk all the time about their desire to bundle packages together because they have so many different streaming budgets. But I just tend to think that when consumers are actually demanding and crying out for a certain thing, at some point the market's going to provide the mechanism. So again, it doesn't currently exist right now, but I think in the future you might actually see that a little bit of a consolidation between a lot of these competing platforms to deal with the real market driver of people's entertainment time, which again is simply just putting on YouTube videos. I'm a big believer in this. People ask me all the time, like, is there a market out there for books? Is there a market out there for this kind of movie or short film? Well, the time. It's just about how people spend their time. And if I'm spending my time during the day watching how-to videos on YouTube, I'm not watching Paramount Plus. You can't do but so many things at once. And so at some point, they're going to have to start treating content creators as the actual competition when it comes to entertainment.
When I think of advertisements and trying to find where I'd want to put my advertisement if I'm a company, outside of like must-see things like sporting events that happen live and they lose their rewatchability, I don't know what else you'd want to be on other than something like YouTube where people are focused and doing it on demand. Stephen Kent, I wish we had more time. Look forward to our next conversation. Look forward to what could be a very disruptive 2026 for streaming and content.